This guy looks quite handsome, but his academic performance isn't very good. Because Songyan doesn't value studying, it's surprising that someone like him would dare to like a top student who just transferred schools. Her name is Schoo. She didn't like Songyan at first, but after being teased by him many times, Schoo gradually developed feelings for him. When their feelings for each other grew stronger, her family objected. Due to the immense pressure, Schoo decisively broke up with Songyan. But her cruel departure left him both sad and angry. The two lovers had to part ways like that. 10 years later, Songyan had become a firefighter. During a firefighting operation, he unfortunately suffered a collision that resulted in a dental injury. Afterward, his colleagues took him to a clinic. The moment he saw the doctor, he froze. Memories of his youth flooded back. It turned out that the doctor before him was his first love. At this moment, Schoo still hadn't recognized Songyan. Seeing the firefighters enter the clinic, she asked who was unwell. Her colleagues immediately pointed to Songyan. Schoo wasn't in charge of the dental department. Her colleague had only asked her to help out for a moment. When she asked Songyan to pull down his mask, he was afraid she would recognize him, so he said he didn't need an examination anymore and turned to leave. But his actions felt strangely familiar to her, she recalled. The familiar yet unfamiliar gaze she'd just seen. It was very similar to someone she knew. She hesitated for a moment, then immediately chased after him, but by the time she reached the gate, his group had already gotten into their car and were preparing to leave. Seeing the beautiful female doctor chasing after them, Songyan's colleagues in the car were very curious. But Songyan coldly told them to drive away. As the car passed Schoo, even though Songyan maintained his cold demeanor, he still glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Perhaps their childhood feelings for each other still lingered. Today, Schoo was on leave at home when suddenly someone called to report a fire in the neighboring neighborhood, and the flames were raging fiercely. Many people were even injured, so she immediately called the fire department. On the other side, Songyan led his teammates to rescue. They were blocked by a car on the way. They called the car owner, but no one answered. In order to get to the scene of the fire quickly, Songyan had someone push the car away. He said he would take full responsibility. Thanks to everyone's joint efforts, they soon cleared the way. When Songyan rushed to the scene to evacuate the crowd, a person suddenly rushed out from the barrier, so he quickly pulled the other person back. When the two looked at each other, they were both a little confused. A moment later, Schoo spoke up and said that she was a doctor. After listening, Songyan let go of her hand and told her to follow him. Schoo looked at his familiar back and suddenly felt very relieved. When they arrived at the scene, they encountered difficulties. This old apartment building was very dangerous. If many people came to search and rescue, the danger would be even greater. After a while of analysis, Songyan finally got the approval of head coach Suojun. He decided to lead a group of staff to search. With their smooth coordination, everyone entered the residential area one by one to conduct an inspection. Suddenly, a room exploded. Coach Suojun immediately called Songyan to ask about the situation. Songyan said that it was a gas cylinder that exploded, but it did not cause any damage. Schoo stood by and heard that he was fine, so she suddenly felt more at ease. Unexpectedly, a team member told Suojun that there was a gas cylinder in every room in this building. Faced with the extremely dangerous situation, Suojun immediately asked Songyan to retreat. As soon as he received the order, he prepared to go downstairs, but suddenly he heard a baby crying. He resolutely disobeyed the order and rushed into the room to save people. Not long after, Songyan found the location of the baby, but when he was about to leave with the baby, an accident happened. The sound of explosions on Suojun's walkie-talkie no longer echoed with Songyan's voice. While everyone was worried about him, a figure suddenly rushed out of the black smoke. Seeing that her ex-lover was still safe and sound, her heart that had been squeezed also relaxed. Then she took the medicine box to Songyan and kindly asked if he was injured anywhere, but he didn't intend to talk to her. He put on an extremely arrogant expression. At the same time, Suojun was extremely angry and went to look for him. He had just finished scolding Songyan when a young man suddenly shouted, "Who flipped my car?" Schoo looked at Songyan in front of her and smiled. When he was about to leave, he still didn't turn his head to look at his ex-girlfriend. Suojun saw the change in Songyan's mood. Suojun curiously asked if Songyan knew that female doctor, but he didn't answer, because right now, he still couldn't let go of the girl who had hurt him. After that, when he returned to the fire station, Suojun still wanted Songyan to say it. At this time, Shu-chin had already returned home. She slowly opened a small suitcase. It was full of Songyan's things. She still kept the dried plums he had given her before. There was also a high school uniform with Songyan's name written on it. The next day, Shu-chin went back to visit the old places alone. She recalled the happy times she had with Songyan. Shu-chin suddenly arrived at his front door. At that time, Songyan's mother also walked out, but when she saw that it was Shu-chin, she suddenly became cold and was about to close the door. She said that her son was often in the team and didn't come home often. After saying that, she closed the door with a cold attitude. Shu-chin could only leave. Not long after, at the hospital, Shu-chin encountered an extremely difficult patient. It was clear that the burn was not serious and only needed a prescription, but she doubted the female doctor's skills. Just at this moment, a seriously injured firefighter walked in. Shu-chin quickly stood up to check his wound. Unexpectedly, when she saw that she was about to leave, the other party started to cause trouble. Just in time, Songyan stepped in and diffused the situation, leaving the woman with nothing to say. After treating her wound, Shu-chin went out to find Songyan. Hearing a team member say that he had just left, she hurriedly chased after him and called him back. She took the initiative to ask how he had been living these past few years. He only responded perfunctorily and asked if she was seared. Okay, she said that her life was not very good. She hesitated for a long time before mustering up the courage to ask him if he had time to go out for coffee with her, but he pretended not to care. That night, when Shu-chin drove home, it rained heavily, which limited her visibility, so Shu-chin drove the car into the tunnel. Unexpectedly, the tunnel was flooded, causing the car to stall. Shu-chin tried to restart it but couldn't get it to start. She was about to take her things and leave, but the car behind her crashed into her, causing the car door to get stuck. Shu-chin's car gradually sank into the water. Then a lot of water flooded into the car. When Shu-chin saw this, she quickly called the fire department for help, but at this time, the water had already reached her feet. Then the car also lost power. Shu-chin immediately felt scared, so she accidentally dropped her phone into the water. Soon, the water had already reached the seat. She reached into the water to find her phone, but couldn't find it. At this point, she was extremely panicked. She kept banging on the window to call for help. At this moment, the rain was about to drown her, when suddenly a beam of light shone on her. There were two firefighters walking over, making her feel like she saw hope. After banging on the window but failing, they decided to push the car back, so Songyan used all his strength to lift the front of the car. He slowly made the car move in the water. This plan quickly worked. Next, Songyan smashed the car window. After looking at the person stuck in the car, he realized that this person was his ex-lover. After a moment of confusion, he stretched out his hand to pull her out of the car. Then he hugged her to his chest in a princess carry. She also took this opportunity to hug his neck tightly. Her eyes stared at the man she loved deeply. Seeing this, he told her to let go. Unexpectedly, she hugged even tighter. He was angry, so he put her down and scolded her. He blamed her for not staying at home in such a heavy rain but running out on the street. Although he was criticizing her, he was worried that she would be in danger. Then he still cared and gave her a protective suit. She asked him if he knew she was in the car. He coldly said that whether it was a person or a dog, he would save them. Shu-chin heard Songyan's words and his decisive departure, and every bit of her dreams were shattered. After Shu-chin returned home, she was always gloomy and unhappy. Her brother Yan-chen saw her like this, so he took her to the bar to relieve her boredom. Shu-chin suddenly heard that the fire department was coming here to inspect, so she made an excuse to go out and make a phone call. Actually, Shu-chin went to see if Songyan was coming here to inspect, but when she arrived, he was nowhere to be seen, so she went up to ask a girl who was in charge of fire inspection. The girl replied that it was not the fire department's responsibility. Shu-chin suddenly felt a sense of loss after hearing this. Then she went to the bathroom to wash her face. She accidentally looked at the mirror on the wall and saw a couple hugging and kissing. She suddenly remembered the scene of the first time she went to the bar with Songyan. She suddenly missed him, so she made an excuse to leave. Not long after, she arrived at his fire station. She told the staff that she wanted to ask him out. The operator called and informed her that Songyan had not returned from a mission. Just as she was about to turn around and leave in disappointment, she suddenly saw Songyan looking at her from a distance. The two of them stood there watching each other from afar. At that moment, Suojun slowly walked over and told Songyan that if he wanted to see her, he could come and see her. Songyan heard this but did not respond. He just bent down and played with his pet dog. Shu-chin saw that Songyan had no intention of seeing her, so she sadly left. The next morning, she came to his front door again. Coincidentally, she met him as he was about to go out. Then she gave him the protective gear. She took the opportunity to thank him for saving her last night. He asked her how to thank him. The girl did not know what to do, so he said that he wanted her to repay him with her body. Hearing this, she immediately became nervous, but then she took the initiative to take a step forward. When he saw her action, he immediately burst out laughing. He asked her how confident she was that he still loved her after all these years. His sarcasm had severely trampled on her self-esteem, but she thought back to how she had cruelly abandoned him back then, so it was only natural that he would have this attitude now. She then mustered up the courage to propose to Songyan to make up. Hearing this, he was stunned. Then he coldly replied that he had long forgotten her. Not long after, a serious traffic accident occurred on the outer ring road, so the two of them met again when they rushed to the rescue. Just as the firefighters were about to pull the injured person out, the car's wheels suddenly slipped. Seeing this, Songyan quickly used his own body to shield Schoo. As a result, he was cut on the back by a steel plate, but he didn't pay attention to this small wound. He still endured the pain and continued to save the injured person. In the end, thanks to everyone's efforts, they successfully rescued the victim from the car. After everything was resolved, she asked him to go to the hospital with her to treat the wound, but he did not pay any attention to her. At that moment, Suojun came over and asked Songyan to get in the ambulance. Songyan reluctantly left with Schoo. After arriving at the hospital, he had to face her. He suddenly felt embarrassed and wanted to change to another doctor. She said that the other doctors were busy. He asked uncomfortably if she could not choose the doctor. She then reminded him of the last accident where she could not choose the rescuer. Hearing this, he could not refute. In the end, he obediently listened to her and took off his shirt. When she saw his back with many wounds, she suddenly felt heartache. The girl's tears were about to fall. Schoo then applied alcohol to disinfect Songyan's wound. She carefully used tweezers to remove the debris from the wound, and then stitched the wound shut. When he stitched the wound, he didn't need any anesthetic, so he endured the pain and let Schoo stitch it for him. After she finished treating the wound, she told him to come see her in 2 days to change the medicine. Hearing this, Songyan felt uncomfortable again. At this moment, Songyan's leader, Yanjae, walked in. She kindly asked about his wound. Yanjae even helped Songyan put on his shirt right in front of Schoo. Schoo saw that Yanjae cared so much for Songyan, and she felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. When Yanjae left, Schoo asked Songyan if she was his girlfriend, but he neither admitted nor denied it. Schoo thought that if he had a girlfriend, then when he rejected her, he would just say that he had a girlfriend. Why did he have to say such irrelevant things? He felt a little ridiculous after hearing this. It was clear that she was the one who dumped him in the first place, but now it was him who was wrong. She knew that he still hated her, so she quickly explained. After hearing those words, she also frankly admitted that if she could turn back time, she would still make the same choice. When Songyan finally calmed down, he said that it was okay to have injuries from his youth, but if he got them again at this age, it would take his life. Then he turned around and left the clinic, leaving her alone, crying in pain. Yanjae also saw a clue from Songyan's expression. She took the initiative to ask if Schoo was his ex-girlfriend. Yanjae saw that he did not respond to her, so she mustered up all her courage to confess to him, but he coldly refused. Perhaps he did not know that the more he ran away, the more love would cling to him. That day, Schoo was resting at home when she suddenly heard a knock on the door. When she opened the door to check, she saw a familiar face. The moment the two looked at each other, the atmosphere suddenly became ambiguous. Suddenly, a man spoke. It turned out that there was a child crawling out onto the balcony of room 1201. The fire department then joined forces to successfully rescue the child. Schoo also quickly treated the boy's wound. Schoo serious appearance made Songyan feel an indescribable feeling in her heart. Schoo then took the opportunity to ask his teammates for Songyan's phone number. Even though everyone had left, he stayed to help her clean up. The handsome and warm first love was right in front of her, making the girl suddenly feel confused. In order to pursue the love that she had abandoned, she decided to take the initiative to attack again. She mustered up the courage to ask him if he was off on Sunday. Even though he heard her, he didn't respond. He just turned around and left in silence. In the evening, she suddenly received a friend request from him. This made her extremely happy. She went to look at his friend circle posts over and over again. She couldn't help but reveal a smile that she hadn't seen in a long time. Early the next morning, Schoo ran to the fire station to find Songyan. She happily said that she wanted to invite him out for a meal. Because Schoo begged, Songyan had no choice but to agree to her invitation. Although he looked reluctant on his face, he was happy inside. When he turned around, he saw his teammates eavesdropping on the conversation, so he warned them. One of his teammates joked that if he didn't agree, he wouldn't add them on WeChat. This made him feel embarrassed, so he chased after them, intending to beat them up. This scene made Schoo laugh. Very quickly, the day of their meeting arrived. Schoo woke up early to prepare and asked her best friend to do her makeup. Songyan was also preparing for today's date. street. He also asked Suojun to cut his hair to look cool. By noon, Shuchin had been waiting for Songyan in the rain since early in the morning, but she waited and waited but still didn't see him. While Shuchin was feeling disappointed, Songyan suddenly got out of a taxi. It was the first time he saw her wearing makeup, so he couldn't help but be surprised. After a moment of silence, Songyan slowly walked towards Shuchin, who was waiting for him. So the two of them walked one after the other on the familiar street. Then she led him to the small restaurant they used to eat at when they were in school. This made Songyan suddenly remember what happened that year. Everything seemed like it had just happened yesterday. Unexpectedly, she still remembered his taste, so she always ordered the dishes he liked to eat. Time passed. The old restaurant was still the same. She still found the taste the same, but he didn't. While talking, he suddenly felt that the fried chicken wasn't as fragrant anymore, so he pretended not to want to eat and took off his gloves. When he saw her stroking her hair, he couldn't help but look at her a few more times. Her attractive appearance suddenly made him a little hesitant, but to hide his feelings, he pretended to be angry and told her to eat quickly so he could go home. This made her a little sad, so she angrily stuffed food into her mouth. Songyan saw Shuchin's adorable puffed cheeks and couldn't help but tease her a bit. She had no idea what he meant. She could only look at him with a blank face. He reluctantly stood up and walked out of the restaurant. After leaving the restaurant, he was upset and said that it was all a trap. When Songyan was about to leave, he suddenly received a call. It turned out that his cousin Jai Miao had been arrested by the full police. So the two of them quickly went to the police station. Songyan angrily asked Jai Miao what had happened. The girl sadly said that she had gone to work and was cheated. She didn't know anything. A policeman stood up and questioned her, pointing at the pile of counterfeit goods in front of her. Songyan angrily asked Jai Miao who had supplied her with the goods. The police said that he had interrogated her before, but she refused to tell him. After hearing these words, Songyan knew that Jai Miao was not willing to cooperate with the police. He was angry and told them to inform the school directly. When Shuchin saw this, she asked the police to let her talk to Jai Miao privately. Then Shuchin pulled Jai Miao aside. After the conversation, Shuchin knew that Jai Miao still refused to give up her plan. She planned to wait until this bad luck passed before continuing to sell fake goods. Only after Shuchin analyzed the pros and cons did Jai Miao realize the seriousness of the Braisby matter. Only then did she obediently give the contact information of the source to the police. The police asked Jai Miao to transfer the money back to the buyer. She also had to pay a fine of 3 times the amount of products sold. At the same time, a fire broke out in a store on the street. Because Songyan was on leave today, Suojun took over the task. Unfortunately, while Suojun was rescuing the person, the gas tank suddenly exploded. When Songyan received the news, he rushed to the hospital and saw his teammates waiting outside. He adjusted his emotions and slowly walked into the hospital room. He looked at Suojun's burned face and cried in pain. The young man lying on the hospital bed was awakened by Songyan's crying. Suojun tried to comfort Songyan that he was fine, he just needed to rest for a while, and he would be fine. These words made Songyan unable to control his emotions anymore. He turned around and walked out of the hospital room, but as soon as he stepped out, he hid in a corner and slapped himself. He remembered the things about Suojun and felt extremely regretful. If it had been Songyan who was on duty today, if he had advised Suojun to change his job position earlier, perhaps today's incident would not have happened. After adjusting his emotions, Songyan walked into the hospital room again. Suojun did not complain about anything. He even cared about the little girl in the fire. Suojun was relieved when he heard Songyan say that the little girl had been successfully rescued, but Songyan had always blamed himself. Seeing this, Suojun comforted Songyan by saying that he was the best fire station trainer and that he had led the best firefighters. In the end, Songyan could not control his emotions when he heard this. The firefighter, who was usually as tough as steel, now cried like a child. Not long after, Suojun recovered and was discharged from the hospital, but his arm and the other half of his face would never be the same again. The fire station held a handover ceremony for Suojun. Seeing the 5-star red flag fluttering, tears fell from his eyes. When she was young, Shuchin was adopted by a wealthy lady, Shoo. Because both her parents died, Shoo was a control freak, so Shuchin was strictly educated by her foster mother and everything. Shuchin had to be graceful and dignified when she ate. Even who she made friends with was checked by her foster mother. 10 years ago, Shoo forbade Shuchin from falling in love, so Shuchin was forced to break up with Songyan to study abroad. After that, she worked hard to become an excellent surgeon. She thought that she would get some affirmation from her foster mother in exchange for the freedom to fall in love. But unexpectedly, Shoo soon found out that Shu Qin was still not over Songyan, so she forced Shu Qin to date the rich son she had chosen. Shu Qin had been oppressed for so long that she did not dare to go against her foster mother. She had no choice but to listen to her foster mother's arrangement and go meet the other person. Just when Shu Qin was about to compromise with fate and marry the rich man and live a boring life, she suddenly received a notice of a transfer from Song Yan. This gave her a glimmer of hope. Shu Qin used the excuse of an urgent emergency at the hospital and hurriedly said goodbye to her blind date. Then she sent a message asking Song Yan to invite her to dinner. Unexpectedly, this time he agreed so straightforwardly, so she returned home and tried to talk to her foster mother. She said that she had recently met a very kind man. Unexpectedly, Shu Mu did not respond at all. Shu Qin could not stand this stifling atmosphere, so she was about to leave. Suddenly, Shu Mu spoke up and told Shu Qin not to force her to do evil again. Shu Qin suddenly understood her foster mother's attitude, but she still did not want to give up. She continued to look for her foster father Shu Fu to talk, hoping that he would support her. Although he did not object to her freely falling in love, he did not want this to cause family discord. Her parents' attitude made Shu Qin feel helpless. She felt like a bird trapped in a cage that wanted to escape but could not. Although she was reluctant, she gave up the idea of going back to Songyan. In their youth, it was her eyes that made him fall in love. In the past 10 years, he had never stopped missing her for a second, but he knew she couldn't let go of her family's pressure. So even though he was heartbroken, he still respected her decision. Just then, a cry for help came from beside her. He immediately ran into the kitchen in the back. He quickly put out the fire on the cook. Then he saved a girl. His handsome appearance made the girl develop feelings for him. It turned out that the girl was Shu Qin's best friend, Li Meng. When Li Meng learned that Shu Qin knew Song Yan, she immediately tried to ask for his phone number. Shu Qin thought that with Song Yan's personality he wouldn't care. Unexpectedly, the next day when they gathered, Shu Qin heard that Song Yan had agreed to meet Li Meng. Suddenly, Shu Qin felt very upset, so she used alcohol to drown her sorrows. Shu Qin had a little alcohol in her system, so she went to find Song Yan and asked him if he had ever made an effort for their relationship in the past few years. Shu Qin knew that she was not good at communicating, so she chose to become a doctor. She hoped to rely on her good skills to support herself. In the future, she would no longer be controlled by others. No matter how Shu Qin tried to persuade her, Song Yan remained silent and did not respond. Over the years, she was not the only one who had worked hard. He had too many feelings that he could not express. The presence of her foster mother was an abyss that they could never cross. After she cried loudly for a while, she was determined to give up this relationship. Seeing Shu Qin leave, Jai Miao wanted to chase after her to tell her that Song Yan had worked hard all these years, but Jai Miao was called back by Song Yan. Now, he was no longer the teenager he was back then. Although he was reluctant, he could not selfishly force Shu Qin to give up everything to come to him. He thought that breaking up was good for both of them, but all he could think of was her appearance. If they both loved each other deeply, he decided to give each other a chance. So Song Yan took the initiative to find Shu Qin to make up. His uncle had raised Song Yan like his own son since he was young, so he understood Song Yan very well. He knew that no matter how many times Song Yan was hurt in love, Song Yan still could not let go of Shu Qin. He pitied Song Yan, who had been trampled on time and time again, but he still respected Song Yan's choice. When Shu Qin found out that Song Yan was looking for him, she hurriedly returned from her foster mother's house. He was worried that she would have a stomachache if she fasted, so he cooked a bowl of white porridge for her. After being apart for 10 years, they both felt a little awkward now that they were in the same room. Every time they accidentally touched each other, their hearts would beat very fast. Song Yan drank a glass of water and then mustered up the courage to ask Shu Qin if she would agree to get back together with him. He knew that she was extremely insecure. He promised that he would try his best to treat her well. Moreover, he also understood her hesitation, but he could not bear this repeated torment. Faced with his sincerity, she did not know what to choose. In the end, she could only remain silent. Their feelings were like boiling water that could never be returned. Shu Qin had lost her parents at a young age, so she lacked a sense of security. She was afraid that her foster mother would abandon her. She knew that she was both cowardly and selfish, so she was not worthy of Song Yan's love. Yan Chen was worried about Shu Qin, so he waited for her downstairs early in the morning. He reminded her not to continue to defy her mother's wishes. Otherwise, the tragedy of 10 years ago would repeat itself. Shu Qin felt that since she was young, she had been like a wild animal locked in a cage. She had been tamed by her foster mother over and over again, so she had long since lost the ability to survive on her own. At the same time, Songyan was abandoned again and again, so he felt extremely painful inside. In order to completely cut off the possibility between the two, Shu Qin gave Songyan's contact information to Li Meng. Shu Qin thought that if Songyan agreed to meet Li Meng, the two would develop step by step. At the rescue station, Songyan got angry when he saw Li Meng ordering food. He strictly forbade the team members to eat this food. Then, he called her and asked her not to bother him anymore. She told him what she thought. She felt that he was quite good, so she wanted to get closer to him. He replied without hesitation that he was Shu Qin's first love. Li Meng did not expect that the person she liked was her best friend's first love, so Li Meng angrily took wine and asked Shu Qin why she did not tell her the truth. Shu Qin felt a little complicated, so she could only apologize to Li Meng. Li Meng saw that Shu Qin still had feelings for Songyan, so she advised them to reunite while Songyan was single. But Shu Qin's pressure was something Li Meng could never understand. Unexpectedly, the next day when she got home from work, she found her foster mother waiting for her in the apartment. Although Shu Mu pretended to bring food to care about Shu Qin's daily life, she actually wanted to see if Songyan was there. Shu Mu's intentions were seen through by Shu Qin. After a long period of restraint, she couldn't breathe anymore. She confessed to her foster mother what she wanted to do. Shu Mu felt disgusted with Songyan and thought that their family was immoral. If Shu Qin still wanted to reunite with Songyan, Shu Mu would send her abroad like 10 years ago. Shu Mu was angry with Shu Qin because of Songyan's little kindness, but she opposed her mother. Shu Mu had spent a lot of effort to raise Shu Qin to be this excellent. Shu Mu thought that Shu Qin's car, house, and job were all arranged by her. Today, Shu Qin wanted to do the opposite for a young man. Shu Mu blamed Shu Qin for not remembering her parents' kindness anymore. Her foster mother's blame made Shu Qin feel that she was too selfish. Between love and family, she once again chose to give up Songyan. Going back to the past. In the past, Songyan's father was unemployed, so he was abandoned by his vain wife. He witnessed his mother leave with a rich man. He frantically ran after her, wanting to hold her back, but he couldn't. Because of that, his father couldn't get up. Every day, his father drank himself to the point of paralysis. He was sensible, so he took the initiative to take care of the housework. Although he wasn't good enough to stir-fry vegetables black, as long as his father was around, he was a child with a home. But that small wish was completely shattered on a snowy night. In the middle of the night, Songyan woke up to pee and found that his father was not by his side. He quickly got up to look for him. Then he found that his father was sitting outside the door and had been frozen into an ice statue. From then on, he became a homeless child. Fortunately, Songyan was adopted by his uncle, so he was not sent to the orphanage. He also missed his mother so much that he secretly went to look for her. But he saw his mother tenderly asking about another boy. The motherly love that once belonged to him had now moved to someone else. At that time, he felt as if he had been abandoned by the whole world. Until he was in high school, everything seemed to have changed. That year, Songyan saw Shu Qin, who had just transferred to the school. With just one look, he placed this girl deep in his heart. He started to study hard because he wanted to improve to be on par with Shu Qin. He wanted to be a good student in both character and academics. After being together for a long time, the two gradually developed feelings for each other. Songyan even brought Shu Qin to peek at his mother. The two saw her gently helping her rich husband into the house. It was a gentleness that his father had never experienced. Songyan decided that he would never come to see his mother again. Ever since she left, she had completely forgotten about him as her son. That woman also forgot about the man who was willing to risk his life for her. Shu Qin did not know how to comfort Songyan. She thought for a long time before taking out a pile of money from her pocket and giving it to him, because her foster mother had once told her that money could buy a lot of happiness. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye, and Songyan had become the captain of the fire station. Today, he brought a team member to deal with the beehive. The new member claimed to be very brave, so he wanted to deal with it himself. As a result, he fell out of the window upstairs because he saved him. Songyan was stung on the butt by a bee. The team members immediately carried him to the hospital. Unexpectedly, the person who treated his wound was Shu Qin. He felt very embarrassed. The nurses knew what to do and left the emergency room, but Songyan still insisted on having a male doctor come to treat it. Unexpectedly, Shu Qin said that in her eyes, he was just a patient who had nothing to do with gender. She had just finished treating his wound when a nurse rushed in and told her to quickly go treat the patient with food poisoning. This embarrassing incident made Songyan very embarrassed. When he calmed down, he left the hospital with his teammates. When he went out, Songyan accidentally met Yan Chen, who came to visit Shu Qin. He misunderstood that Songyan was bothering his sister again, so he warned Songyan to stay away from Shu Qin. When he returned home, Yan Chen advised Shu Qin to give up the idea of reuniting with Song Yan, but he was coldly rejected by her. He thought about her, thinking of leaving this house because of her ex-boyfriend. He immediately lost his mind and yelled at her. Not long before, a group of students went out exploring, but unfortunately, they got stuck in a mountain cave. The fire brigade took over the mission and immediately went to the scene of the accident. Unexpectedly, the victims' families were very agitated. Song Yan asked the locals and learned that the group of students had avoided the dang guards and secretly climbed up from behind the mountain. There was a place on the mountain with jagged cliffs. Even the locals rarely climbed there. Song Yan quickly determined the location that the locals said. Not long after, he led the team members to start the rescue. After a long time of climbing, they finally found the group of trapped students. Among them, a female student fell and broke her leg. So Song Yan called Shu Qin to ask how to treat the wound. According to Shu Qin's instructions, a member started to bandage the female student's wound. Song Yan saw that the temperature on the mountain was getting lower and lower. If they continued to stay for a long time, their lives would be in danger. So everyone started to quickly go down the mountain. It wasn't far before they could safely reach the foot of the mountain. A member of the fire brigade, named Jun Ping, accidentally slipped and fell down the cliff. Although his life was not in danger, one of his legs was crushed by a rock. Seeing this, Song Yan quickly tied a rope around himself and climbed down, but he used all his strength to move the rock. The female student kept screaming because her wound was too painful. He told everyone to quickly bring her down the mountain. Because Jun Ping had been unable to get out for more than an hour and a half, Song Yan told the team members to bring the group of students down the mountain first. Then they used tools to push the rock away. Song Yan stayed behind with Jun Ping, so everyone started to quickly lead the students down the mountain. At this time, Shu Qin's room was also a little worried about Song Yan's safety, so she decided to send a text message to ask about his situation. Shu Qin waited for a long time, but she still did not receive a reply. She called him, but no one answered. She did not know that he was already on the cliff. Song Yan hugged Jun Ping, who was shivering. The two warmed each other and waited for rescue. It was not easy for the team members to reach the foot of the mountain. A student who was carried along the whole way saw his family and immediately pushed the firefighter away. He happily ran forward to hug his father. Before the firefighters could even breathe, they had to take their tools and return to the mountain. When the two were so cold that they could not hold on any longer, they finally waited for the team members to come to rescue. Song Yan finally went down the mountain safely. He was so tired that he collapsed to the ground. A member of the fire brigade, Jiang Yu, gave Song Yan some bread to eat to ease his hunger. This young man had just been assigned to the fire station. Instructor Jiang Yu felt that what happened tonight was a little unpleasant. Song Yan just smiled calmly because after many years of being a firefighter, he had met many people with different personalities. But as long as he could save lives every time, everything was worth it. At this time, Shu Qin was worried when she received Song Yan's news that she was safe. She could finally sleep peacefully. The rescue of the female student last night made Jiang Yu realize a problem. They had not yet completed the medical team because some of the injuries were so serious that they could not be treated immediately. In order to minimize the casualty rate, Jiang Yu suggested to his superiors to cooperate with the hospital. So, a team of medical staff was sent to the fire station for training. The team leader was Shu Qin. Unexpectedly, the person who stepped forward to demonstrate was Song Yan. She pretended to calmly demonstrate how to stop bleeding for an injured person. However, the constant close contact immediately made Song Yan feel her heart pounding. When Song Yan faced Shu Qin's request, he also pretended to calmly take off his shirt. Then he lay down so she could continue her lecture. After being pressed, he felt like he couldn't hold it anymore. He quickly picked up his shirt and left. Because he was the team leader, the two of them met every day. It seemed that Song Yan was very resistant to contact with Shu Qin. During the firefighting training, he didn't even want to be in the same group with her. Jiang Yu assigned Shu Qin to be in the same group with Song Yan, but Song Yan asked member Jiang Yi to be in the same group with Shu Qin. Although she felt very uncomfortable, she still didn't complain. She still tried her best to complete the training with the team members. During the process, Song Yan kept a close eye on Shu Qin. After the training session ended, the two met again at the gym. She asked him why he kept avoiding her. He explained that he didn't want the team members to tease him. They would affect the training progress. This answer made her feel very uncomfortable. She sulked and said that she would keep her distance from him in the future. Song Yan panicked when he heard this. He immediately went up and pressed the stop button on the fall treadmill. Shu Qin turned around to leave when she suddenly sprained her ankle. Song Yan quickly helped Shu Chin sit down and lifted her leg into his arms. When he massaged her leg, he saw that she was in so much pain that she was sweating, and he couldn't hide his heartache. At this time, some team members suddenly appeared, making the two very embarrassed. Song-yan hurriedly left the scene. At midnight the next day, a bus crashed down the mountainside. The fire department and medical staff quickly set off. At the scene, all the passengers had been rescued. Only one man remained because of his complicated injuries and could not be taken away. So Schoo Chin volunteered to go up and treat his injuries. Song-yan was worried about Schoo Chin's safety, so he decided to go down with her. Thanks to her professional treatment, the man was successfully put into the ambulance. By the time the rescue was completed, it was already dawn. The firefighters asked Schoo Chin to take a picture for everyone. When Song-yan saw the sunrise in front of him, he unconsciously turned his head to look at Schoo Chin. He felt lucky that 10 years later, the two of them could still meet again. But when Schoo Chin saw Li Meng and Song-yan chatting happily, she sulked and congratulated him. Moreover, she admitted that she was jealous. Song-yan understood Schoo Chin's personality very well, but time and time again, the two of them did not clearly define their relationship, which made them both tormented. Jang Yu could see that the two of them liked each other. He had gone on a blind date with Schoo Chin before, so he knew that she had no intention of accepting the family's forced marriage, so he had the intention of matching them up. Jang Yu deliberately dragged Schoo Chin out to discuss the matter between the two families. Song-yan looked through the rearview mirror and saw that the two were laughing and talking happily. On the surface, he pretended that he didn't care, but in his heart, he was unhappy. Jang Yu seemed to not notice it again and again. On the contrary, Jang Yu teased Song-yan that Schoo Chin had a secret crush on him. Song-yan felt that Jang Yu's words were annoying, so Song-yan deliberately turned around and went downstairs. Unexpectedly, Jang Yu kept following Song-yan and teasing him. The coach also said that Schoo Chin was his ideal type. Song-yan was annoyed, so he said that Schoo Chin had no chance of liking him. Jang Yu showed an interested expression and asked Song-yan if he also liked her. Song-yan couldn't help but kick Jang Yu's ass. When Shu Mu learned that Schoo Chin was working at Song-yan's fire station, she wanted to separate Schoo Chin and Song-yan again. Shu Mu contacted the deputy director of the hospital and deliberately pressured him to disband the rescue cooperation team. Shu Mu then made an appointment to meet Song-yan privately. The two had a deep grudge for a long time. It started with Song-yan's father being unreasonably fired by Shu Mu. Because of vanity, Song-yan's mother abandoned her family. His father couldn't bear the blow and froze to death outside their house. Later, Shu Mu learned that Song-yan and Schoo Chin were in love, so she not only sent her adopted daughter abroad, but also wanted to completely destroy Song-yan's future. Song-yan's uncle even went to the company and knelt before her. He ignored his dignity and begged her to spare Song-yan. Shu Mu showed contempt and told someone to drag him out. When Song-yan saw the woman in front of him smiling, he was no longer as agitated as he was when he was a teenager. Shu Mu heard this and just smiled calmly. She firmly asked him not to bother Schoo Chin anymore. Shu Mu deliberately talked about Song-yan's mother abandoning her family out of vanity. She trampled on his pride. He clenched his fists and tried to suppress his anger. After scanning the payment code, he stood up and left. Shu Mu changed a bit. When Song-yan returned to the fire station, Jang Yu coincidentally called the deputy director. The trainer said that the hospital had received a complaint from the doctor's family, so they did not agree to let the medical team stay at the fire station. When Song-yan heard this, he immediately knew that this was Shu Mu's trick, but he felt that this request was reasonable. Jang Yu also guessed that Schoo Chin's foster mother called to report. Seeing that the medical staff were about to leave the fire station, they wanted to try using the water nozzle before leaving, so Schoo Chin took a souvenir photo at the side. Unfortunately, she was sprayed with water by her colleague and got wet. Even so, she still smiled and showed the photo she took to her colleague. Then she went into the bathroom alone. Song-yan had carefully prepared a clean set of clothes for her. He then helped her hang up her wet clothes. Because the clothes were too loose, she clumsily dried her hair for a long time. Seeing this, he took a hairdryer to dry her hair. He even joked that she looked like a witch at this moment. Then he gently brushed her hair. This scene reminded her of 10 years ago. At that time, they were in love without thinking. In their eyes and hearts, they were each other's images. But after so many years of separation, everything changed. Schoo Chin discovered that she knew very little about Song-yan in the past 10 years. She asked him about what had happened in the past years, but he said that his story had nothing to do with her. Today, Song-yan met Shu Mu, so he knew that the possibility between the two of them seemed to be zero. He couldn't bear to make her feel awkward in the middle. If there was no possibility, then he would keep his distance from her and gradually forget about her. Song-yan used to be a special forces soldier guarding the border. When he faced a rain of bullets, he was not afraid. Only his first love love was something he couldn't let go of. During a mission, he was unfortunately shot. Luckily, the lighter she gave him blocked a fatal blow. Songyan didn't expect that he would still be alive. His superiors told him that if it weren't for this lighter, the bullet would have gone straight into his artery. In another development, Schoo had to listen to her foster mother's arrangement. She went on a blind date with the rich young master that her foster mother chose. Although Schoo did not dare to disobey her mother, she decided to leave immediately. She intended to use this method to resist her mother's control. Although Songyan told him to forget about Schoo, as soon as he had free time, his mind was filled with her image. He looked at his contacts and wondered why he could not let her go. Unfortunately, he pressed the call button. When he heard her voice, he could only lie that Jongyu accidentally pressed the wrong button. She immediately realized this clumsy lie. It seemed that there were many things between the two of them that they wanted to say, but did not dare to say them. They could only reluctantly say goodbye to each other. Not long after, the hospital was preparing to conduct a fire drill. Coincidentally, Schoo was assigned the role of a doctor trapped waiting to be rescued. Her colleagues thought that she would not be happy, but they didn't know that she was laughing secretly in her heart. She followed the request and went to the medicine room to wait for rescue. Schoo expected Songyan to appear, but when he arrived, she immediately criticized him for being slow. She sulked and said that if there really was a fire, wouldn't she have turned into a corpse? The two of them kept arguing with each other. At this time, there was a sudden earthquake. Seeing the boxes on the shelves falling, Songyan unconsciously protected Schoo in his arms. Only when the shaking stopped did he let her go. Songyan quickly gathered with the team members to prepare for the actual rescue. When he was about to leave, he saw that the medicine room floor was full of glass shards. Songyan turned around and picked Schoo up and took her to safety. Then he turned and ran downstairs. Immediately after, the fire brigade quickly departed, heading towards the epicenter of the earthquake. Following that, everyone at the hospital also volunteered to support the rescue efforts. Over here, because landslides made vehicle travel impossible, everyone in the fire brigade had to run on foot to rescue the trapped civilians. Everyone was exerting themselves to rescue those trapped in the rubble. The medical team also quickly arrived to provide emergency care to the victims. Everyone joined hands and searched for over 10 hours. Songyan let his brothers rest, but one teammate continued working. He went to stop him and learned that the teammate's house had also collapsed. Songyan asked Zhang Yi's mother's name and promised that he would contact the team to find her immediately. At this time, there were aftershocks. So many houses collapsed for the second time. That night, Zhang Yi called his mother, but no one answered. A team member named Yang Ji gave Zhang Yi a cup of noodles. Although he was very hungry, he was in no mood to eat. Yang Ji was by his side, constantly comforting Zhang Yi. At this time, Songyan stepped forward and told Zhang Yi that the commander had contacted the higher-ups to announce the search for people. They would soon have results, so Zhang Yi should not worry. Songyan gave Zhang Yi noodles and said that he needed to have strength to save more people, only eating after he was done. Schoo had just returned to rest when the walkie-talkie announced someone needed emergency aid, so she and two colleagues immediately went to the scene. Over here, the firefighters were still trying their best to save people from the rubble. Songyan and his teammates used all their strength to move large debris, making Schoo down below extremely worried. Finally, the team successfully saved a woman. Unfortunately, another woman lost her life, but the talented Schoo saved the baby in the girl's womb, making everyone present happy. After rescuing the newborn, Schoo sat tiredly stitching up the incision for the deceased woman. Then, Schoo and Songyan went out when suddenly he vomited continuously due to exhaustion. Schoo hurriedly ran to get food and water for him, then reminded him to eat and rest properly. She unconsciously smiled happily seeing his current strong appearance after a long time. Schoo was helping treat victims when a firefighter came to tell her about Songyan's situation. Worried, she ran to check, but seeing him resting in the car, she just quietly watched him for a while then left. Immediately after, the firefighter came to wake him up and the two continued the search. The whole team was saving people at a nursing home when suddenly the building collapsed. Everyone ran out, only to discover Songyan was nowhere to be seen. Everyone hurriedly went to find him. At the field hospital, Schoo unexpectedly heard news about a firefighter buried in the rubble. Having a bad feeling, she followed them there. After a while of searching, everyone discovered Songyan's location. Schoo went to ask everyone. Then when she didn't see Songyan, she realized and questioned them, but everyone was silent. Then Zhang Yu pointed downwards, making her cry in heartbreak. She insisted on going down, but Zhang Yu did not let her risk her life like that. Schoo immediately shouted that Songyan was her life. Everyone was so touched by Schoo feelings that they agreed to let her go down to save Songyan. Songyan's injury was more serious than imagined. An iron rod pierced through his stomach, causing the bleeding to continue. Schoo gave Song-yan an IV and checked her vital signs, but then the walkie-talkie rang. It turned out that there was someone seriously injured up there who needed immediate surgery. On one side was the man she loved, on the other was her responsibility and mission. At that moment, Schoo understood the meaning of being a doctor. She burst into tears, kissed Song-yan's forehead, and said she would go up to operate right away. Everyone was moved by her greatness and selflessness. Fortunately, her teammates arrived in time to save her. They quickly rescued Song-yan from under the rubble. John Yu looked at the seriously injured Song-yan and cried in pain. He kept telling everyone to be gentle and not to touch the wound. Song-yan was immediately taken to the emergency operating room. The director operated on him. After 4 hours of emergency surgery, he finally removed the steel pipe from Song-yan's body. Schoo and the dog were waiting outside the operating room. At this time, another patient who needed surgery was brought in. Schoo accepted the task without hesitation. Early the next morning after her surgery, the first thing she did was run out to find Song-yan, but on the way, she saw the medical staff carrying a corpse out of the operating room. Schoo did not believe it and stood frozen in place. She held back her tears, her hands trembling, and carefully opened the cloth. At that moment, tears flowed out. Schoo breathed a sigh of relief because the dead person was not the person she loved. Over here, Song-yan had been taken to the recovery room. Schoo, seeing this from outside, felt somewhat relieved. She intended to leave, but because she was too exhausted, she collapsed right there. When Schoo woke up, she saw Song-yan lying nearby, so she pulled her bed next to his and covered him with a blanket. Finally, Song-yan woke up, making her extremely happy to see the person she loved had recovered. The next day, Schoo went to take care of Song-yan. As soon as he woke up, he was immediately scolded by her for not paying attention to safety. While the two were talking, a teammate from the old special ops team came to find him. As soon as Song-yan's old teammate arrived, he called Schoo was sister-in-law. His name was Lu Ji. Song-yan held Lu Ji's hand and said that she was a doctor, not his sister-in-law. Then Schoo left the tent to let the two talk. Lu Ji turned to ask Song-yan, "Didn't it work?" He smiled and shook his head. The two of them looked at each other and smiled brightly. Lu Ji searched for Song-yan for a long time, but he couldn't find him. Lu Ji said that he felt sorry for Song-yan like that. Song-yan calmly said that it was over. Lu Ji knew that Song-yan was shot because he didn't want to involve his teammates. Song-yan looked at Lu Ji's rank. This military uniform was Song-yan's dream. Lu Ji then wrote down his contact information and gave it to Song-yan. He promised that he would contact him often. Later, Jiang Yu led the team members to visit Song-yan. These guys were very optimistic when they were together, making the atmosphere very happy. They teased Song-yan that he was much more handsome after the surgery. One member took out his phone to show Song-yan the baby born in the earthquake. It turned out that the baby's father was also a soldier. Although the mother did not survive, luckily she was able to keep her child. Yang Ji told Song-yan how Schoo was not afraid of danger and went down to save him. He was very touched when he heard one of the members joke that she had only been halfway through the surgery when she immediately went to rescue someone else. It seemed like she did not really love him. Zhang Yi asked him if he knew what true love was. After the members left, Zhang Yi turned back to Song-yan and told him that everyone was just teasing him and the doctor. In fact, she was the first person to go down to save him. Schoo said that Song-yan was her life. Song-yan was deeply moved to hear that. That evening, Schoo took Song-yan out to watch the stars and chat. Suddenly another patient needed emergency care, so she had to leave immediately. Then, she turned back and told him they would meet up when they returned. Song-yan looked at Schoo, smiled, and happily agreed. They finally had the courage to not avoid each other's feelings. Song-yan watched Schoo back as she walked away. Then he took out the lighter. She returned to him. After completing the mission, the entire fire brigade and medical team returned in triumph. Song-yan tossed Schoo a bouquet of flowers as a farewell gift, then happily headed back. Teased by her colleagues inside the car, Schoo could only shyly hug the bouquet he gave her tightly. After the earthquake, Song-yan and Schoo returned to their normal lives. This morning was the first time they took the train together. They didn't expect it to be so crowded today, so they had to squeeze together with many other people. Song-yan protected Schoo in his arms. The train suddenly shook violently, so he got closer and closer to her. Then they went to the movies together. Song-yan also bought a very large box of popcorn. When they were halfway through watching, watching. He went out again. He saw that the emergency exit in the theater was locked, so he called the staff to open the door. Only then did he feel secure watching the movie with Schoo. The feelings between the two grew stronger and stronger. Just as they closed their eyes to kiss, a laugh rang out, causing them both to shyly turn away. After watching the movie, they went to the supermarket together. Songyan took the pork belly that Schoo liked to eat the most, but she said that she now liked to eat marbled meat. He happily took the meat and said that he would find out her preferences again. She said she couldn't eat spicy food anymore. Songyan replied that he could eat spicy food now. After 10 years, both of their tastes had changed, but their love for each other had never diminished. When they got home, Songyan personally went to the kitchen. Schoo was extremely happy to see that the man she loved was so talented. The two lit candles and had a romantic candlelight dinner. After dinner, Songyan took the initiative to wash the dishes. Schoo wanted to keep Songyan for a while longer, but it was already dark, so he refused. But as soon as Songyan left, Schoo mustered up all her courage to chase after him. When she went out, she couldn't see his figure. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind her. Songyan asked Schoo if she still liked him. She was so moved that she didn't know how to answer, but she still hesitated. The moment Songyan turned around to leave, Schoo suddenly shouted that she agreed. Then she ran towards him, hugged his neck tightly, and proposed marriage. After that, the two of them returned home and could no longer control the fire in their hearts. Schoo leaned against the stove and let Songyan kiss him. At that time, Songyan also broke the thing that had been sealed for 10 years. Schoo also gave everything to that guy. Early in the morning, the two of them hugged and even asked about when they would have children. Then, Songyan cooked a nutritious breakfast for Schoo. In the elevator, she suddenly said that she liked him. He did not know who she was talking about. Schoo replied sulkily that it was Li Meng. Songyan realized that Schoo was jealous, so he answered that it was not. She continued to ask if he liked Li Meng. Songyan did not say anything and pressed Schoo against the wall and kissed her on the lips. Seeing that Songyan and Schoo were a couple, Zhang Yu also started to look for his love. Seeing that Li Meng was coughing while speaking on the podium, Zhang Yu was very upset. Zhang Yu was about to ask, but he said that he had no questions. Then, during the break, he gave Li Meng a bottle of water. He left a note reminding her to keep warm and drink warm water. The small concern warmed her heart. She continued to promote fire prevention knowledge. Next, Schoo was invited to the podium to speak because she was a model rescuer in the earthquake. Unexpectedly, Schoo turned the commendation ceremony into a self-criticism ceremony. She said that because of her negligence, the baby almost died. The medical staff in the audience were chatting excitedly. The vice director quickly grabbed the microphone to interrupt Schoo. He was afraid that she would turn the commendation ceremony into a criticism ceremony. After the ceremony ended, the department head gave Schoo a medal. Schoo looked at him in disbelief. She finally got the department head's recognition. Schoo immediately bragged to her colleagues that he had given her the medal. Her colleagues were very jealous when they saw this. It turned out that this medal was very meaningful. It was given to her by the Minister of Health when the head of the department went to Africa for relief. Every year, on the day of the doctor, he took it out and wore it. Schoo had just finished her surgery when she turned on her phone to check but saw that there were no messages. She felt disappointed. What was even more frustrating was that when she got home that night, Songyan still hadn't sent Schoo a single message. She wondered if he hadn't missed her all day. She went to his and Li Meng's personal page and saw that she was even angrier. Schoo composed a message to ask Songyan if they were lovers, but she thought about it and deleted it. She pretended to be obedient and asked where he was. Unexpectedly, he replied right away. He asked if she missed him. She made an excuse that she had texted the wrong person. He said he would be there in 10 minutes. She smiled and ran downstairs to pick him up. After falling in love, the two of them lived together without their families for a month. She mustered up the courage to tell her parents that she had a boyfriend. Unexpectedly, before her foster mother knew who it was, her mother asked her to break up immediately. Schoo explained that she had liked that person for 10 years, and that person was Songyan. Schoo became even angrier after hearing this. Schoo firmly said that both she and Schoo father did not agree. This time, her foster father also opposed Schoo being with Songyan. He said that the difference in their family backgrounds was too great. Sooner or later, their differences would be revealed. At that time, many big and small problems would continuously arise. Schoo still believed that there were no such problems between her and Songyan. It was only her parents' objections. Schoo tried her best to explain. She hoped that her parents would understand and believe her, but their different views made her parents increasingly angry. Schoo foster father said that Songyan being with her was just profiting. Schoo said that if she was with Songyan, she would have to lose something, so she would be willing to give up everything she had sad now. Her tears of pain and disappointment rolled down. She put her car keys and house keys on the table. She stood up and apologized to her parents. She would repay their kindness in raising her. From now on, she would come back to visit every week. Even if they didn't want to see her, she would still come back. Shoo was very angry that Shoo dared to defy her, so she turned and went upstairs. So Shoo begged her foster father again, but he showed that he no longer spoiled her. This was the first time Shoo argued with her parents. Her father thought that she was stubborn and abandoned her family to choose the person she loved. He didn't agree with the way Shoo was in love. Although her parents were a bit controlling, they gave her a comfortable life. Her mother only hoped that she would marry a good person and have a bright future. In the future, she wouldn't be burdened with financial burdens. Shoo sat alone on the overpass and cried bitterly. Songyan ran over with Shoo. She raised her arms and asked for a hug. She had given up everything, so now he was the only one left. He painfully hugged the girl he loved. So Songyan took Shoo to his home. As soon as they entered the house, Jai Miao and Songyan's uncle warmly welcomed her. They also prepared a full meal, waiting for Shoo and Songyan to come home to eat. While eating, the whole family teased each other and laughed happily. At this time, Shoo felt the warmth of family that she had never had before. Songyan told everyone that Shoo was going to move in with him. The two of them spent a happy time together, where she felt the warmth of a real family. Not long after, Shoo took Shoo for a walk in the mall. She bought Shoo the most expensive clothes and handbags, but Shoo was not excited at all. When she returned, Shoo asked a rich young master to take Shoo home. When Shoo was hesitating whether to get in the car or not, she suddenly heard Jai Miao calling sister-in-law. It turned out that Songyan had also brought his sister here to shop. Shoo was angry when she heard this. She told the young man that Shoo didn't have a boyfriend, but Shoo immediately said that she already had a boyfriend and pointed at Songyan. Shoo said that they had a conflict and broke up. Shoo didn't back down anymore. This time, she bravely walked towards the person she loved. Songyan was extremely happy, but he also knew how much pain Shoo had suffered when he said that in front of Shoo. Songyan held Shoo hand and walked to her mother and politely nodded in greeting. When Shoo heard this, she angrily turned around and got in the car and left. Shoo bravery also made Jai Miao look at her with different eyes. Songyan hugged Shoo tightly and apologized for making her sad. He promised her that he would go home with her and face everything together. Jai Miao also raised the bag in her hand and said that he was still carrying the bag with the donuts that weren't his. The next day, Shoo happily cycled to work. When she arrived at the hospital, she heard from a colleague that a patient's family member was making a scene outside. That person criticized Dr. Yang for the failed surgery that caused his wife's death. Shoo heard this and took her cup of coffee to the rooftop. Sure enough, Dr. Yang was hiding in the corner, crying. Shoo went forward and confided that she once knew an emergency doctor from abroad. He set a rule for himself and the doctors in the department. If the emergency was unsuccessful or they couldn't get off the operating table, they were only allowed to grieve for 1 minute, not more than 1 second, because there were still so many patients waiting. After listening, Dr. Yang revealed to Shoo that when the patient was brought to the hospital, her stomach was bleeding heavily and needed immediate surgery. But her mother-in-law and husband were hesitant because the hospital bill was too high, so they didn't sign. Although the patient's brother finally agreed to the surgery, the golden time had passed. Although Dr. Yang was not responsible, the patient still died at her hands. She sat in the operating room feeling very regretful. Shoo heard this and told Dr. Yang that they were just weak humans, not omnipotent gods. Those words were like a life-saving straw that pulled Dr. Yang out of the darkness. Dr. Yang looked at Shoo and was deeply moved. Suddenly, there was surprising news that Songyan and Zhang Yu were siblings with the same mother but different fathers. Songyan's mother loved luxury, so she only wanted to marry a rich man. She was heartless to leave Songyan behind, but in the end, she still could not get what she wanted. After giving birth to Zhang Yu, she gave the child to her husband's first wife to raise. But, until now, they still do not know that they are siblings. A fire suddenly broke out at the duty station. Zhang Yu was knocked down from the second floor by a strong pressure. Songyan ran over to check. He shouted Zhang Yu's name. At that time, Songyan was afraid that he would lose his teammates again. Fortunately, Zhang Yu woke up. He was so scared that he felt like he had lost half his life. That night, Zhang Yu was in a daze. Songyan took the initiative to comfort Zhang Yu and asked if he was scared. He nodded in agreement. Songyan comforted Zhang Yu that firefighters like them were the courage of this city. If even they were scared, the whole city would not be at peace. Zhang Yu sat alone in the office, watching the video of Songyan saving him yesterday. After watching it, he rewound it and watched it again. His nose was so sore that he almost cried, and his teammates who came near him didn't even notice. days. Zhang Yu had not even had a day off before he had to go on duty again. The chemical plant had a toxic gas leak. Song Yan and Yang Ji entered the leaking area and closed the valve. Suddenly, a screw on a pipe loosened, causing toxic gas to leak out. Song Yan couldn't dodge in time, so he was sprayed with toxic gas all over his body. He and his teammates still completed the mission. After getting out, suddenly, Song Yan felt dizzy and fainted. It turned out his protective suit had torn during the mission. His teammates quickly rushed him to the hospital. When he was taken to the emergency room, Shu Qin felt very sorry for Song Yan because it was the most toxic gas in the world. Shu Qin continuously defibrillated his heart in the operating room. No matter how hard she tried to squeeze his chest, it didn't work. Shu Qin felt very scared. Song Yan's heartbeat finally recovered. Only then did Shu Qin breathe a sigh of relief. After this incident, Shu Qin began to worry about her future life with Song Yan. She was afraid that such a danger would happen again. She didn't want to be worried all the time. When Shu Qin got home from work in the evening, Song Yan was already waiting for her at the end of the street. When she approached, he immediately hugged her. Last night, Da Feng had just successfully confessed his love to his girlfriend. Today, he had lost his precious life while carrying out a mission. It turned out that people had secretly set off fireworks in the square. The fireworks soared into the clouds and exploded in the sky. Suddenly, one of them hit the building. Coincidentally, it also contained a lot of illegal flammable and explosive materials. The fire spread very quickly. When the fire department received the call, they immediately went to the scene. The fire was much more serious than imagined. Song Yan led everyone to the fire floor. This building had a high risk of explosion. When a member turned on the fire hose, there was no water, so they had to change their plan. They threw the hose away and rushed in despite the difficulty. But bad luck always happened. There were many gas cylinders in the room that looked like they were about to explode. In this urgent situation, Song Yan ordered everyone to retreat, but the explosion still occurred and had a very strong destructive power. When Song Yan checked the members, he couldn't find Da Feng. No one answered the walkie-talkie. Suddenly, someone discovered that Da Feng's helmet had fallen to the ground. Only then did they realize that something was wrong. Then they found Da Feng beside them. Everyone pushed the rock that had been pressing on Da Feng away. When they turned him over, they saw that Da Feng's face had been burned to the point of being deformed. It turned out that at the crucial moment, Da Feng had given a gas mask to a trapped person. Song Yan carried Da Feng on his back and kept calling for the doctor. Song Yan put Da Feng on the ambulance. Song Yan told Zhang Yi to go to the hospital with Da Feng. He would continue to lead his teammates to carry out the firefighting work. As soon as they finished the mission, Song Yan and everyone went to the hospital to visit Da Feng, but they saw Zhang Yi sitting outside the operating room door crying. Even though they didn't want to believe it, the story of Da Feng's sacrifice had come true. Everyone saw that the once lively and energetic Da Feng had just died like that. At this time, Da Feng's girlfriend knew about it and rushed to the hospital. Seeing this, she cried silently. Her teammates covered Da Feng with a white cloth. Song Yan angrily walked out of the operating room. Shu Qin saw this and worriedly chased after him. She held him back and asked if he was okay. He lost his composure. Then he told her that he could no longer keep his promise to her. He was a little resentful of losing his teammates. He said that he could no longer live peaceful days with her. He wanted to find out what happened, so he resolutely left. He went to the scene of the fire in the Mengshi building to look for clues. Shu Qin's parents were still at home, feeling complacent. It turned out that Yan Chen had argued with his mother earlier, so he left home. He went to a bar to drink to ease his mind. At this time, a girl named Yezi received a call from a colleague saying that Yan Chen had arrived at the hotel. She deliberately dressed up in Shu Qin's style and went to the hotel. At this time, Yan Chen had already drunk quite a bit. Yezi knelt down and asked Yan Chen, "Are you okay?" He opened his eyes and vaguely saw Shu Qin, but upon closer inspection, he realized it was Yezi. Then he sat up in disappointment. Yezi always used the excuse of inviting Yan Chen to dinner to come find him. She always brushed her hair back. Unexpectedly, he had no interest in her. He sneered and told her that moths and butterflies were two very similar insects, but they were very different. Even if moths had wings as beautiful as butterflies, it would be difficult for ordinary people to detect them, but he recognized them at a glance. Yezi's eyes filled with tears. She understood clearly what Yan Chen was saying. He continued to say that butterflies butterflies liked to fly in the sun, while moths always appeared at night. After Ye-zi heard this, she pretended not to know what he was talking about. He refused to explain clearly, he just drank boredly. Then he said that it didn't matter if she understood or not. Now he just wanted to be alone. Ye-zi boldly said that she liked Yan Chen, but he asked her how much money she wanted. This sentence deeply hurt her heart. She turned around and left. She ran out of the room, sat down, hugged her knees and cried. But she thought that it wasn't worth it to give up like this. So she had a bold idea. She went back to the room again. After a few operations, Ye-zi falsely accused Yan Chen of assaulting her. Shoo was worried about her son, so she called him. Ye-zi answered the phone, but she didn't say a word and just kept crying. She cried for a few hours and then immediately hung up. That still wasn't enough. Then Ye-zi called the class monitor. She cried and asked the class monitor to come save her. At this time, Yan Chen's mother was afraid that making a big deal out of it would affect the company's reputation, so she found a lawyer to resolve the matter. This evil mother could not let Ye-zi off easily. Shoo asked Ye-zi how much money she needed. Ye-zi replied without hesitation, 15 billion. When Ye-zi was about to send her account number, Yan Chen suddenly woke up. He calmly said that if she sent this message, she would go to jail. It turned out that he was not drunk or unconscious. He slowly sat up and reminded her. At this time, she also said that she had just recorded a video. He calmly said that she was just drunk and not dead. She angrily threatened that she would call the police. Yan Chen no longer cared about these things. He even provoked her, saying that if she had the ability, she should call the police. Ye-zi took out her phone and entered the number, but she did not dare to press the call button. He didn't expect her to actually call the police. As soon as the lawyer received the news, he immediately reported to Shoo that Yan Chen had been taken away by the police. At the police station, he didn't explain a word. His parents were very worried outside. After Shu Chen and Song Yan heard the news, they rushed to the police station. She told the lawyer to tell Yan Chen that if anything happened, they should go home and solve it together. But he didn't listen. Public opinion was quickly criticizing. Song Yan asked the hotel owner if Ye-zi was his employee. The boss was extremely angry and said that he had already discovered that she was not a good person. He had fired her a month ago. He didn't expect Ye-zi to make such a big fuss now. Song Yan asked if they had surveillance cameras. He said they had in the hallway, but not in the room. Then he showed Song Yan the surveillance video in the hallway. Inside, they saw the girl. Maybe she saw what happened, but they couldn't contact her right now. After Song Yan watched it, he looked thoughtful. At this time, Jai Miao was on the rooftop, very worried. It turned out that the person the camera recorded in the hallway was Jai Miao. That night, Jai Miao followed her out of concern for Ye-zi. Unexpectedly, Jai Miao saw Ye-zi doing that kind of thing to Yan Chen. In order to harm him, she scratched herself. Jai Miao took out her phone to record this scene. At this time, Song Yan returned home. He recognized the person in the video as his cousin at first glance, but Jai Miao resented what that family had done to her brother, so she firmly refused to acknowledge. She had a huge argument with him. Not long after, Shoo went to the police station to confess. In the end, she was punished and locked up in prison. It turned out that Song Yan had successfully persuaded Jai Miao. He told her that he would not forgive them. He also had no intention of taking revenge, because he did not want to live his life in hatred. Song Yan then stood up and told Jai Miao that he did not need her to be a righteous hero. He just needs her to present evidence. It is the duty of every citizen. With her honest nature, she decided to make them pay. Yan Chen's mother knew that Jai Miao had evidence to prove her son's innocence, so as soon as she met the lawyer, she immediately asked Jai Miao how much money she needed. But he said that Jai Miao didn't need money. This surprised Yan Chen's parents. Then they went to Jai Miao's house in anger. After Shoo entered the house, she still kept an arrogant attitude and asked Jai Miao what he wanted. Jai Miao replied that if they used this attitude to save people, they could leave. Jai Miao had already begun to calm down. Unexpectedly, Shoo interrupted him and said some vicious words. Shoo told Jai Miao that if she wanted revenge, she should target me. Jai Miao then asked back, when Shoo harmed Song Yan, did she think about his family? Shoo's mood had only lasted for a few hours, but Jai Miao's family had experienced it for more than 10 years. It turned out that in the past, Song Yan was a promising elite soldier in the special forces who had secured a spot for officer training with a bright future ahead. However, Shu Qin's mother was determined to completely block the relationship between her daughter and Song Yan. She leveraged the Meng family's connections and power to interfere with his background check process. She fabricated accusations or manipulated his file to create a stain on his record, leading his superiors to mistakenly believe he had character or disciplinary issues. This not only cost him the opportunity for promotion, but also forced him to be discharged from the military, unjustly, despite having done nothing wrong. Yan Chen's parents were speechless. Shumu continued to ask Jai Miao what she wanted with an arrogant attitude. Jai Miao wanted to clear her parents' shame, so she told Shumu to kneel down. Shumu's usual arrogant attitude had completely collapsed at this moment. Shumu didn't expect Jai Miao to be so formidable, but in order to save her son, she intended to kneel down. While she was kneeling, Shufu stopped her. The two of them fought mentally for a long time, and in the end, the wife knelt down and admitted her mistake. Perhaps Shumu had arthritis, so she couldn't bend her knees. Jai Miao couldn't bear it anymore, so she said, "Okay." After Shumu heard this, she stood up happily. Then Jai Miao said that whatever crime Shumu committed that year, she had to take responsibility for it. If she took responsibility, then her son wouldn't have to take responsibility anymore. Jai Miao's intention was to tell Shumu to turn herself in. In order to save her son, she really went to the police station to turn herself in. The police were taking Shumu into the interrogation room. Coincidentally, they met Yan Chen, who had just been released. Shumu angrily turned around and hit Yan Chen, scolding him. "Are you satisfied now?" He just calmly said, "Sorry, but the wrong she did must be taken responsibility." At this time, Shu Qin also arrived. Shumu was blamed by her son for the heinous crime. Afterwards, she went into the interrogation room and agreed to be investigated. Because Ye Zi blackmailed others, she was arrested by the police. Unexpectedly, Yan Chen told the police that he had given up on pursuing her responsibility. Then he went to visit her in the detention room. Until now, she still did not know her mistake. She even blamed him. Not long after, Song Yan and Shu Qin were about to get married. They held hands and walked on the grass. This moment was like a love that spanned centuries. 10 years ago, Song Yan fell in love with Shu Qin at first sight. 10 years later, he walked down the aisle with her. A few days ago, Sumu took the initiative to confess that she had harmed Song Yan that year. The police considered her confession an illness, so she was finally released on bail. Just like that, Sumu did not receive the punishment of the law. The vice dean was not so lucky. After being arrested by the police, he was sent to prison. After being detained for a few days, Ye Zi was also released, but she had lost everyone's trust. Her classmates rejected her, so she was eventually sent to a place far from school. Shu Qin's foster father took the initiative to bring gifts to visit Song Yan's family. Although everyone was surprised, they still welcomed him happily out of politeness. Then everyone sat down to eat. Shu Fu took the initiative to express his goodwill by raising his glass to both admit his guilt and express his gratitude. This was also the first time he felt a harmonious family atmosphere. After eating, he still felt a little reluctant. Shu Qin wanted to see him off, but he refused. He suggested that Song Yan send him off. Shu Fu wanted to say a few words to Song Yan. The two men walked in the alley and talked about family matters. Shu Fu said that his daughter was probably determined to marry Song Yan. Song Yan immediately replied that he really wanted to marry Shu Qin. Hearing this, Shu Fu nodded in agreement and patted Song Yan's shoulder before turning around and leaving. This implicitly showed that Shu Fu had completely accepted their relationship. The next day, Song Yan said that he would take Shu Qin to see the room. If she liked it, they would rent it. The moment she opened the door, Shu Qin was very happy. The interior was decorated to her liking. There was a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom. Shu Qin was as cheerful as a doll. There was also a spacious balcony where flowers could be planted and fish could be raised. Shu Qin said that she really liked this house. Then Song Yan took Shu Qin to the rooftop. It turned out to be a flower garden, and the slogan, "Son of the City," was on the wall. The most important thing was that this place could also see the highway. Shu Qin excitedly told Song Yan to call the landlord immediately and say that they would rent this room. Song Yan smiled and picked up the phone to call. Unexpectedly, Shu Qin's phone rang. She turned around and said that he had called the wrong person. Song Yan smiled and said that she was his landlord. It turned out that he had bought this house long ago and had dedicated himself to renovating it. Taking advantage of this atmosphere, Song Yan knelt down and proposed to Shu Qin. After this incident, Yan Chen changed a lot. He decided to start over. Yan Chen also officially gave up his feelings for Shu Qin. Seeing the engagement ring on her hand, he was not angry, but instead gave her a gift to congratulate them on their happiness. After that, the two went in opposite directions. At this time, Yan Chen's steps were stronger. Suddenly, he received a text message. When he opened it, it turned out that Shu Qin had sent it. She said that she was lucky to be his family for life. Not long after, Song Yan and Shu Qin took wedding photos. Just when happiness and romance were overflowing, a storm came and threw the whole city into chaos. Song Yan and the fire brigade he led went into combat readiness. All the staff canceled their vacations and awaited orders. The rainstorm flooded the streets, and the Chinese faced disaster. The whole team worked together. Everyone took the initiative to post articles asking for help to help the trapped staff. Journalists on the front lines were reporting the latest news. Suddenly, the wind blew the billboard down and injured the cameraman. Yan Chen saw the staff on the side of the road injured, so he took the initiative to invite them to get in the car and prepare to take them to the hospital. At this time, Yan Chen saw Ye Zi volunteering on the street. It turned out that there was a dangerous manhole ahead. Ye Zi was there to remind passers-by to pay attention to safety. The two looked at each other in surprise. The situation was urgent, so Yan Chen didn't have time to stay. He looked at Ye Zi in the rainstorm with mixed feelings. Then a truck full of bicycles drove by. The clever man blocked the manhole cover with a bicycle. After a day and a night of emergency rescue, Song Yan and the team members were very tired. They sat down to eat cakes on the side of the road, but before they could finish their cakes, they received a rescue notice. It turned out that a nearby tunnel had collapsed, trapping many passengers. Among them was Shu Qin's foster mother. The driver was hit by falling rocks and fell into a coma. Shu Mu tried to open the door, but couldn't. It was at this moment that Song Yan brought the team members over. They rescued the trapped people. Hearing the noise, she knocked on the door to remind the rescue workers, but now she had no strength left. At this time, mud was blocking the front window of the car. She used all her strength to reach out and press the horn, but an injured person like her couldn't reach it. At this moment, Song Yan looked deep into the tunnel and felt something was wrong, so he prepared to go up to check. Suddenly, a few bricks fell from above. Some of his teammates thought they should leave quickly. As they turned around, Shu Mu finally turned on the windshield wipers. Song Yan immediately felt the noise. Just like that, he risked his life to break the car window. The two looked at each other and were very surprised. Song Yan did not hesitate to reach out to save Shu Mu. When she looked at him, she quickly grabbed his hand as if she had grabbed a life-saving straw. Like that, he carried her on his back and successfully escaped danger. In the car, everyone asked her if she knew the Blaze firefighter. She turned to look at Song Yan and said that he was her daughter's boyfriend. Soon the storm passed and the whole city was gradually reviving. Shu Qin was transferred from the emergency department to the outpatient department. Shu Mu no longer had the same arrogant attitude as before. Instead, she was a little more gentle and considerate. The family atmosphere was warm. At this time, Zhang Yu and Li Meng also became a couple. Song Yan and Shu Qin hugged each other in the flower garden on the rooftop of their house and looked at the surrounding scenery. Shu Qin curiously asked Soldier Song Yan what oath he had sworn. He replied without hesitation that he would always serve the people without fear of sacrifice, be loyal to his post, work hard, and strive in the face of difficulties. No matter the circumstances, he would never betray his country and would never betray his girlfriend. The movie ends here. Goodbye, and see you again.